Welcome to Peaceout Witches. I'm Jamie, and I believe in your inner magic.
And I'm Stacy. We're so excited to guide you through this week's episode where we're diving deep into shadow work and why winter is the perfect season for it.
I mean, that's right. Winter is the time of stillness, reflection. It's a time of going inward. Unfortunately, during our winter as moms, especially, we just don't normally get that time. I mean, I don't know about you, but I have sports, I have dance, I have recitals, I have Christmas, whatever. I mean, we have all the things. But today we're going to break down how to, or what is shadow work, and how to go deeper and how to actually do the work during the appropriate season so that it doesn't feel like a job. It doesn't feel like a chore. It feels natural and we can process things and roll on in our lives.
Well, and I think that a lot of times in our society, we don't allow ourselves to rest. And so winter is really an opportunity to allow ourselves to rest and to allow ourselves to just integrate time for healing and for slowing down and looking inward. So today we're just going to share some of our personal experiences, give you some powerful journal prompts, and talk a little bit about embracing your shadow and how it can lead to profound self-growth. And of course, we'll also share how you can go deeper with us in lunar alchemy or path to priestess. So grab your tea, light a candle, and let's dive in.
Let's do it. So before we even get started here at Peace Out Witches, we just want you to take a deep breath, close your eyes, breathe out through you breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, and just kind of settle in and allow winter. We're in January right now, and just allow the feeling of winter to just kind of enclose you, envelop you. I don't know what that is represented for you. For me, it's cold, but it feels heavy, feels dark. And if you're not comfortable with that, just take a deep breath.
As you
Allow,
allow,
yeah, just allow what you're comfortable with. It doesn't have to be
mhm.
everything that it is. It can be one piece of it.
And as you arrive in this moment, just close your eyes, take a deep rest, let the season nurture you in the quiet. And as we inhale, just imagine a soft golden light surrounding you. And as we hold this light, we just allow it to just share its intention and its light with us. And we show compassion towards ourselves and towards others. And when you're ready, just gently open your eyes and come back to us. Take one last deep breath. If it
Mhm.
has a sound, let it out.
I like to shake it out sometimes. Definitely a time for shadow work. And during the winter is a time for integration. And what we mean by that is if we allow ourselves to get quiet and take a few minutes to just understand that we have all those pieces in us, maybe that we're triggered by. We have trauma, we have feelings that are unprocessed that may come up day to day, week to week, month to month, maybe seasonally, especially this time of year during Christmas or after we have these emotions that come up. And it's just a beautiful way, shadow work is just a beautiful way to embrace these parts of us and learn the lessons from them. And we can never expect to learn all the lessons at once, but we can offer attention and kindness and grace and love and light to these parts of ourselves and allow ourselves to fully feel them. So, this time of year, especially for me, is one of those times where I need to balance the excitement of dealing with my family and Christmas and the celebrations, but I also have this deeper sadness because I lost my mother around this time of year. And it is something I need to recognize and honor as opposed to just push aside and plow through and deal with it later.
And I think that that's the important part that sometimes maybe is unrecognized about shadow work is that really when we're working within the shadow, we are working with this aspect of the unconscious self. And we are working with these aspects of our personality that we often in society will reject or deny. For example, grief. Thank you, Jamie, for bringing up that
Yeah,
example. Because grief is something that we reject, right? We don't want to
it's
grieve.
hard.
We don't want to cry. We don't want to feel pain. We don't want to feel insecure about others seeing our pain. We don't want to make others feel uncomfortable with our pain. And yet, what most people who are close to us want to do when we're grieving is they want to just hold space for us to be able to grieve and they want to share that aspect with us. And so the shadow is the parts of ourself that we push aside, that we don't want to look at, that we try to bury, and that we often will have to deal with later on at some point in our life because they are a part of our identity. We are not just light and happy shit all the time. We are light
Right.
and dark. We are shadow and light. And so we are conscious and unconscious. And it's important to be able to look at those things, but look at them with self-compassion and with love. And just like Jamie mentioned, like, even looking at herself with love in the aspect of, okay, like you have a lot to do. You're having to run all over for your kids, but how
Mhm.
can you sit in the car for a few minutes and take a deep breath with the cold air and remind yourself that you're present and that your mom wants you to be present in those events for your kids and excited and happy to be there and not stressed about the fact that you should be at work or you should be somewhere else or you should be doing something else. And I think that that's also a big part of what this shadow work does for us as moms is that it reminds us that by accepting our identity and all feelings that we have throughout the day, we're also helping our kids understand that feelings are normal and that, that these parts of ourself that we maybe think aren't worthy or likable can be worthy and likable because all parts of ourselves are likable and worthy.
I definitely feel like people who I've met in my studies as a person who really like wants the fringe or the esoteric knowledge that is hidden, the hidden mysteries. I feel like
Hmm.
people who I gravitated towards mostly for my own instruction as a student were those who were human, still were triggered, but they could freely talk about how things trigger them and how they process them. Because I think that's the biggest part of healing is just knowing that um, our day to day, sometimes we feel, okay, let's back up a few. Sometimes we fill up our schedule so intensely so that we don't ever feel anything but stress or go, go, go,
Hmm.
whatever that is, whatever that feeling is. For me, it's stress. But I sometimes live in that bubble of stress because I'm just not ready to stop and address the deeper, darker, more, I would say more healing emotions that are under the surface of that. And
Hmm.
so when I say that the healing emotions, I mean those things that if I were to stop, which I do, don't get me wrong, I do this. I think that's we need to, as light workers, have moments. We can't always be in love and light and everything is happy, joy, joy. No, we cannot. We have to go there because if we don't go there, then we're not being our authentic self. We're just not because our authentic self has the lows and the highs and that in between, right? But when I go there, so I'm busy, 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 I'm in stress mode, and I actually allow myself to go into the darker emotions. There's always a quick process. It's never as long as I assume it'll be. It's
Hmm.
never going to be as intense as I work myself up to be,
Like you
thinking
mean that fear of if I go there,
I'm going
I
to be out
might
for 10
not come
days.
back.
Oh my gosh, yes, the
Hmm.
downtime of it. I have no
Yeah.
time for downtime. But I found as I've grown older and come more into my crownness and my wise woman, that and just speaking of the star card that we just pulled in the tarot deck, the star card depicts like having hope and having trust and having faith and have knowing that the divine is there and I'm abundant. And then being in my crone, I realize now in this life that I'm walking that those were just fleeting emotions that I built up to be something bigger, you know.
Hmm.
Yes, there's real trauma. Yes, you do have to process it in layers. I'm not saying when I integrate my shadow that I'm done. I'm saying that when I integrate my shadow, I allow pieces of myself to come back. And I'm more accepting. And after I accept that part of me, I'm able to accept that part of other people. So I'm more loving and I'm a better healer and I'm able to spread more light because I'm seeing these people who are wounded in the way that I once was, but I've learned to integrate and I can help them. Does that make sense?
Well, and I think for moms, especially, a big shadow that we often deal with is this aspect of rage and anger. And there is a big self-awareness that has to come out around that because it doesn't feel like we always have emotional freedom to feel, right? We work in a man's
Right.
world most of the time in our current situation. And so when we are working in a man's world, we're often taking all of those feelings and stuffing them in. We don't have time for them. You know, we need to be able to produce this thing. And if we don't produce this thing, then we're not going to be able to come home, you know? And so by giving ourselves just a little bit amount of time, even if it's like 5 minutes a day, to have self awareness around the way that we're feeling, we begin to give ourselves an emotional freedom to not just feel that way, but also be able to be self aware enough to talk about it.
Mhm.
So I might be able to come to my friend and be like, oh my God, last night I had such a great time with you at dinner, but I realized that I maybe took over dinner because I talked too much and I didn't listen to what you had to say or something like that. Now, that takes a self-aware person to be able to have that discussion about a shadow that that person has. Now, I share that individually because that's a shadow that I have a lot of times because I have ADHD and I have a lot to say all the time. And so, going there often means that I have to be critical of myself in a way that allows me to have a deeper self-trust. And I think a lot of times when we think of the shadow, we think of like dark or the devil or like, oh, we're
Mhm.
doing shadow witchy work. But really, like the shadow is integrating the parts of ourself that we think aren't lovable.
And we push
I'm
away.
not lovable when I rage. I'm not lovable when I'm angry. But the person who loves me anyway, and I love me anyway. And because I can love myself anyway, and because the person that I'm with, hopefully in my situation, the person that I'm with does love me anyway, it allows me to be able to give myself a sense of unconditional love that allows me to then feel more safe, to be more self-aware the next time. And then maybe I stop myself in the rage next time.
That's what I'm
Maybe I
saying.
say, "Oh my
Mhm.
God, I realize right now I'm standing in your room and I'm really pissed off and I'm angry and I'm raging." Because I'm overstimulated because I didn't eat dinner and I'm tired and everything in my house is loud. And I'm so sorry, children. I'm going to go take a break outside for a minute. And you guys are going to carry on with whatever chaos you're doing in here. And I'm going to come back in a minute because now I'm more self aware that I'm angry. And I'm angry not because I'm triggered by all these things in my house that are triggering me, but I'm triggered by that thing that really wasn't dealt with or whatever. And because I gave myself just a moment and a deeper self trust to be self aware of what was actually causing the problem, I allow myself to be a better person and a better mom. And I think sometimes in our society, we don't talk about the anger and the frustration and the just outright pissed offness that can happen as moms. Like, man, we're just constantly uh, asked to do more. And we
It's
are
hard.
asked to show up to our shadow, right? To our
Mhm.
kid who's like literally throwing all of our shit back at us. Like, oh, ha, 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 I don't like that. Oh my God. but I said that yesterday.
But I feel like the integration of the shadow is that piece of I'm going to see, hey, I'm being triggered right now, and I'm going to be something I don't like. So
Yes.
instead of doing that action, I'm going to go outside or I'm going to do something to allow myself to have those emotions, but not react and not spew them everywhere else. I'm going to actually go inward and go, holy crap. Hey, how can I deal with this when it comes up again? How can I react differently? How this is the best way. Okay, let's do this. And you're never going to know a time in your play in your life. Okay, let's go back. You're never going to know a time in your life where it's a mother where you're not going to be triggered. I if there are mothers out there who are never triggered, God bless you. Your angels sent from heaven. Just are. Oh my goodness. But there will be a time in your life, especially if you do this shadow integration work, where you'll be a better person and you'll be a better mother and you will be a better you for yourself because nobody likes to feel out of control. Nobody likes to be triggered. And what comes out? That person that comes out from that is that shadow piece, that person you're
Hmm.
like, I don't like that part of me.
Well, and
I
this is part of why we believe so strongly in working with the moon, because the full moon really allows us a time every month to look at the shadow, to see what kind of things in our life that we no longer want, that are no longer serving us, that are no longer in our highest good. It allows us to go deeper, to have a practice that um, gives us not only a supportive sisterhood in being able to share about all the things that we're experiencing as sisters and moms and mothers and working people and all the things that we experience as women, wives, best friends. Um, it's this ability each month to look and say, oh, we're at a full moon, we're at a new moon, and this is an opportunity for me to take one day in this month and spend some time with me. Spend one day going deeper into my own spiritual practice. Spend one day going deeper into my own self-awareness and my own emotional regulation. Because if I can protect myself, if I can give back to myself, if I can fill up my cup, if I can support myself by actually going there in the full moon and then calling in what I'm calling into my life in the new moon, it actually makes it a lot more powerful for me because I'm really just praying and I'm calling my prayers into action. But I'm able to do that on a moon cycle way that is supporting me in going through my shadow work so that I don't have so much shadow work to do at some point, right? At some point, overdoing this for months and months and
it
months,
changes.
it
Mhm.
changes and I don't have as many things that I'm struggling with or working through, and I'm able to just maybe deal with some of the bigger things or some of the main things that are just kind of like lifelong changes.
Mhm.
So, if that sounds like something that you'd really love to do, we do our full moon and new moon work in our company called Lunar Alchemy. It's not our company, it's our program. And we do that with our path to, with our Peace Not Perfection Academy. And Lunar Alchemy is our full moon, new moon ceremony ritual program. And it's a monthly membership, and you get to do all kinds of fun new moon, full moon things in there. And we really spend time integrating our shadow, spending time journaling on self awareness, and working with emotional intelligence so that we can have a deeper self trust within our own inner magic. So, if you'd like to learn more, please check out our link below. Let Jamie and I know we're always checking those comments. So, Jamie, that brings us to why is this season? Why is it so important in this season, the season we call winter, the season where we also still feel really busy because school's going, sports are going, things like that? Why is it so important still in winter to be able to take this time to integrate the shadow? And why do we do it in winter and say not like spring?
I feel like winter time in whatever wherever you live, whenever winter is upon us, it cultivates a space for us to integrate our shadow because it's a darker time of year. It's
Hmm.
colder. we're less likely to be wanting to go out and do things. We're more likely wanting to go inward or read a book or cozy up, watch a movie, get warm, get cozy. And when we are in that self-nurturing mode, I feel like winter kind of cultivates self-nurturing in that way,
Hmm.
building a nest, building a place where you're, warm and cozy. It will allow us to have the grace and that peaceful kind of bubble where we can kind of look at ourselves a little, look at things that trigger us. A lot of our triggers do happen during this time of year because it's darker. We're not getting sunlight. We're not getting our vitamin D, and we're not having the happy hormones just flowing through us like summer brings. That's physiologically different. Number two, it's for us on the western side in the United States and this part of the world, we're dealing with Christmas, and Christmas and the holidays often brings a lot of turmoil in our lives because people choose to leave at this time a lot of times, but also there's just a lot more stressors that come with Christmas and other things. And so we're triggered more easily. We're at our kind of frayed. Our ends are frayed. We're just at that wit's end kind of moment. And um, it's just relevant because it's just right there for us to observe. And it's right there for us to go, hey, oh man, I'm really, when the Christmas blues come after Christmas in January, I needed to kind of like figure out that piece because every January I feel depressed. So what do I do? What's going
Hmm.
on here? Or maybe it's Christmas time. I'm so angry and I just everything triggers me and nothing can go right and everything feels wrong. This is the time of year when we're in shadowed. We're in darkness. The days are much shorter. The nights are much longer.
I I think there's that aspect too. I mean, if you're experiencing a lot of anger, frustration, not that you're going through a grief process. Okay, grief process
Yeah,
is kind of different in its own self.
yeah.
But if you're experiencing a lot of those things, it might be because you're in winter and you're not resting. Okay, like animals, they hibernate. We're meant to hibernate. We're meant to rest. We're meant to go
What is that?
inside, be quiet,
That doesn't
have
happen.
self-reflection.
Mhm.
It's this time that is really important for the deep healing and the wisdom to be able to come. And, in some parts of the earth, right, it's snowy and there is really this quietness that the snow brings. Now, I know Jamie, she lives in California, and so sometimes that can feel like the hustle and bustle is still going in the winter. And I
Never
think
stop.
that that can bring this aspect of frustration because you're not connected to the season. Now, Jamie
Mhm.
and I both homeschool our kids, and we both homeschool our kids under Waldorf practices. And her husband actually is a specialized Waldorf teacher. And so, one of the things that we know about this season is it's the time that you're supposed to carry your light with you. It's not necessarily the time that we're supposed to produce more light. So, this is the time when our energy is slower, when we're more still, when we're not gardening, we're not out, cleaning the crap out of our houses, although maybe we are because we're inside, but we're not doing as much active work, right? We're definitely not doing as much active work on the land and farming and in our land and in the outside earthly world. And so in the Waldorf tradition, this is when we teach math. Now I know shadow work and math doesn't seem to go together, but the reason that we teach math and Waldorf education in winter is because it's when you're more still, you're more quiet, you're more inside, you're more
Intellectual.
using your mind, and you're having this more stillness within the body because it's cold. You're wanting to kind of stay more inside and stay cuddled inside. And so the subconscious mind is wanting to take that internal self reflection and that self exploration and its ability to focus on that kind of exploration is deeper and better in the winter because of the way that the season is, because it's bringing that aspect of healing and, hermiting inside and really like resting through that winter time. And so, one of the things that Jamie and I do is we've changed a lot of the traditions that we do with our families and the way that we do them. Um, we work in a lot more time for rest. So for example, if my kids are having football games or something like that on Saturdays in the winter, then every Sunday we're doing nothing. We're resting. Um,
True.
we homeschool, so Mondays we don't usually do schoolwork, and that's an aspect of being able to call in the quiet. In the springtime, we usually are doing more schoolwork on Mondays, so we're having, a lot more movement. We're not as still and quiet and cuddly in bed. We're more, moving out on our land and working with the animals and working with the bringing in the gardens and things like that. That's more our spring and fall, and that is more of an active time. It's a movement time. But winter, because it really is more calling in that quiet time, even within the chi of it and the feng shui of it, if we can use this time wisely and give ourselves even just small moments within our week, we can begin to notice old patterns, allow them to release, and we can invite through shadow work our opportunity to grow and become new.
And that's why we actually created a program called 16 Divine Nights, which is takes you through like your shadow
Hmm.
piece, but also it takes you into what you want to create and manifest also. Because
Yeah.
you do the shadow work, but then what comes next? Well, you need to fill your cup. You've kind of
Hmm.
emptied it. You've kind of like, okay, here, this is my cup. I processed all this junk that's been bubbling up and over and affecting my life in a negative way. And now it's like empty. It's just not there. So the 16 Divine Nights comes in, helps you do that, but then it helps you to kind of find your life purpose and figure out what
Hmm.
the next steps are for you, even if it's not a lifetime of things you're creating. So check that out on our website if that's something that you are needing support with. And we're also here for you to give you support. So just reach out to us because we are human beings. Just come to our website. There's many things you can go through and many paths through us to help with that shadow piece.
And so, if you're new to shadow work, some of the things that we recommend is, simple things. So, the first simplest thing to do is journaling.
Mhm.
And you can start with, questions like, what am I avoiding? What emotions do I struggle to express? If you're a person who's finding you're triggered all the time, I mean, what am I triggered by? What triggered me today? What triggered me in the last hour, right?
That's
Um,
what I use actually.
and looking at what kind of reoccurring fears, patterns, or triggers you have in that journaling can be really great. Don't be afraid. I have a journal that I write and I don't like to pull the pages out of. And so a lot of times that's like my happy journal. It's like the journal that like when I die, my kids will read. And then I have another journal that I don't care about and I rip out of and I'll burn and I'll write all kinds of nasty
It's
things in
your
there about
process.
yeah,
Hmm.
about anyone and everyone I want to write about in there, but I'm never afraid that like someone's gonna find it or see it because I just rip the pages out and burn it. It's not like my oh my God special journal that I want someone to have someday. So, I think sometimes people think that journaling has to be one way or the other. Like pull out a piece of paper that's lined paper and just write on it or type it up on your computer. Like just giving yourself the time for your brain and your conscious to be heard allows the subconscious to be heard. And when we've spent no time listening to the conscious, she has a lot to say. So we really have to let her be heard and let her be expressed and let her be spoken of and written down as much as we can so that then the subconscious can start to come in and say, oh, yeah. I see that. Oh, I see that that story came from this thing, right? But first, we have to get rid of all the junk. And that's
Yeah.
what journaling allows you to do. And then the other one would be like just a small meditation.
I
And
like meditation.
yeah,
100%. Yeah. Just taking the issue or what has triggered you or your potential shadow that you're dealing with into meditation and allowing it to show you where you can expand your lesson or just taking the lesson in, which would mean like closing your eyes, getting centered, taking the issue into your higher mind. When I do that, it looks like I'm in heaven or like in clouds and this light. And I take my issue and I put it on the stairs, these marble stairs, and I let it just sit there. And then I ask, please just show me my lessons or give me the internal knowing that I need to know or the lessons. And I just sit in quiet mind meditation, allow that to filter in, however it does, it processes in. And even if I don't have like an aha moment or a conscious, like, oh my goodness, this is what I need to do, it doesn't matter because you're still processing it. And then you come out
Hmm.
of meditation and you roll on with your day. It's just, if that works better for you than writing, then that's a way that I deal with it when I'm in that moment that I can't journal and I just need to process that part of me.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And, I mean, I think when we give ourselves time to journal, I think oftentimes as women and moms, we don't feel like we ever have any time for ourselves. And so this is really just about taking back a little bit of time of ourselves. And, for me personally, when I started this journey of self-healing and this journey of coming into the divine feminine and realizing that I was coming to everyone with a cup that was never full. And I was just rooted in this aspect of always needing to be perfect. Everything needed to be perfect in every way, and I needed to have control over all of these things. And what started happening with me when I was going through the full moon and new moon work and really spending time on my shadowy self, I started realizing that that perfectionist wasn't coming from myself. It was coming from a need of being able to control all the things in my life so that I wouldn't feel so overwhelmed all the time. And when I started giving myself a moment, just a moment in each day, and pretty soon in each week, to feel like myself again, to hear my thoughts without being interrupted by my four beautiful, sweet children,
Hmm.
I was able to begin to integrate that really what I was trying to do was control the situation. N- And, when you have four kids, well, if you don't have four kids, you might not know, but, it can be very chaotic and you can't always control the chaos. And so what that was causing for me was just too much stress. I was walking around like a stress rage cadet all the time, stressed out and raging and never happy and never feeling fulfilled in my life. Because in reality, I was always coming to the table with a cup that was never full. I was, and that's because I was a nursing mom. I mean, I spent years, 10 years nursing and never sleeping at night. So this is coming from that aspect of like a mom who's in survival, who's nursing, who's tired, who has a full-time job and a husband and four kids and still has to put food on the table. But taking these moments, especially in winter, to just hear ourselves via
Hmm.
journaling can really allow ourselves to see and to experience and be able to reflect upon and give back to ourselves in a way that we can continue to give back to our families. And it's important. It's important. And if your husband's not on board, get him on board, even if it's just, hey, I need to do 30 minutes every Saturday morning where I go to coffee and I just journal for myself. But giving back to yourself is part of what shadow work does. And if we don't ever have time to think or self reflect, then we don't ever have time to work on the shadowy piece and it will take over. And then we'll just be this unlovable thing instead of this lovable thing that also has unlovable things about them to work on.
I agree with that. And I feel like if you're listening this far into our podcast, then the shadow piece is going to start activating itself within you, whether you
Mm.
do the journaling, whether you do the meditation. And we just ask that you become aware of that piece of you that shows up and how it shows up, but also be graceful and have grace for it. And know that there are parts of us we like and there's parts of us we don't like, but it's all us. And when we can just embrace that piece, it is all us,
Hmm. Yeah.
then we get to have more power and sovereignty over who shows up in the moments that we're triggered.
Yeah. And so I think that that is the most important part of today is, doing shadow work and working with the shadow, whether you're working with it in winter or whether you're working with it in spring, it really doesn't matter. But what you're doing is you're saying yes to you. You're saying yes to self-discovery. You're saying yes to healing and magic. And you're saying yes to listening to the sacred wisdom that is within. And That's so important. So, if you enjoyed this shadow conversation and you'd like to have more, please check out any of our programs that are available at Peace Not Perfection Academy. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you're loving our episodes. Please leave us a review, share with a friend, and until next time, stay grounded, stay radiant, and remember, we believe in your inner magic.
Peace out, witches.